like even like White Noise, where Heinrich says, you know, animals commit incest all the time, so how weird can it be?
How unnatural could it be?
How? Yeah, animals commit incest all the time. How unnatural can it be? It's like, well, if you look at, you know, an inbred lion or an inbred tiger, you know, they're kind of
Goat.
Yeah, goat. Yeah, let's go with the goat. Or
Goats will do that, especially the boys. They will do everything in their power. If you do not clip their balls, they will do everything in their power to fuck their mom. They do. They'll jump a fence and fuck their mom.
How did you do with quotes from this book? Did you find it quotable or no? Welcome back. It's been half a year. I don't know how long it's been.
84 years.
Done this. Oh yeah, let's Titanic reference this.
It's been 84 years.
It's been 84 years since a man has touched me there with his tongue.
Grandma, stop.
I come dust. Anyway, welcome back to Murder of Prose. We review books. We pass judgment on those we like and condemn the ones we hate. Obviously, as you probably have guessed from clicking on this video, if you are watching it, and this is an author we enjoy, so chances are we liked the book. I'm JD. This is EK. We are reviewing Samurai Bluegrass by Craig Turleson, a Canadian author.
Wow.
We've also read Surf City Acid Drop and Manastique. If you want to find videos there on our channel, read the review or not read, listen to the review.
I'll find a way to link them. I have no idea how.
There will be links in the description, I guess. Whatever. We're not the most savvy people when it comes to.
We're a little tech-tarded.
Yeah, we're tech-tarded. Before we even get into the, I guess, grading process, I don't know what this book. I thoroughly enjoyed the read. I know I will be reading this again at some point.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's been. I think I finished this back in, what was it, June, July, something like that. And yesterday I was doing a quick refresher, like just a crash refresher course, just to like refamiliarize myself with it. And I kept, it took several hours longer than I intended to because I just kept getting sucked back in. So God damn it, Craig.
I will say, like, he has a knack for opening lines or paragraphs, but this one kind of takes it for me. Like, every day I spent in the city, I thought of my death. Like, yeah, every day we were meeting in the city, I thought of my death. But because if you don't know what the story is about going in, there's a lot of directions that sentence could go in.
Mm-hmm. Well, in it's like the third line in the book. Yet all the while, my death walked with me.
Yeah.
The man has a way with words that doesn't make me immediately want to kill myself. And there aren't very many indie authors I can say that about.
No.
Anyway, what did how did you feel about it overall? How did you like it?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. The only thing I wish there would have been more of is like the more time spent in the 12th century, like where he like, cause there was like a brief section of, but it mostly spent time in like the 70s and like the early or 1980, 1981, like when he had freshly crossed over. I wish we had just gotten, but there was like a small section in like the 12th century where I'm like, I wish we would just spend a little more time there, getting just a touch more backstory instead of being told it, being shown it. Like,
yeah, there were a few scenes that I thought could have been traded out for a little more history. I would have liked to see that, particularly as concerns like the Doctor.
I really, that's the Doctor is really my only gripe with this book, actually, like serious gripe, because he just feels like, out of all the characters, he feels the most two-dimensional to me.
Yeah, there's no. Yeah, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more, like maybe not even where he came from, just how he found out about the doorway.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like when you meet him, he knows about the doorway. When you see him in the 12th century, he is looking to cross the doorway. Like that's what he revolves around, and it's like, well, how did you even find out about it? Who told you?
Especially since he's not of samurai lineage.
Well, he said, I forget who says it. I think Riku says it, actually. Like, he assumes that he must be at least he has to come from some samurai house, because otherwise the musicians wouldn't have let him cross over. Something happened where they were removed from that samurai class. So like, what happened? Is that something that eats at him? That's why he's doing what he's doing? Like, you can kind of assume that,
almost like why was I not good enough to be trained in the class of samurai kind of thing? Like, I don't know. I would have, if there was more from his perspective in terms of like the past, like I said, like I would have liked more 12th century stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have liked that too. That was same. That's really my biggest gripe. Like, even if the book had been a little bit longer, but it didn't really need to be longer. He just needed to take. I feel like
it didn't need to be longer, but I wouldn't have minded if it were.
No, I wouldn't have minded.
Just to get that extra bit of
information, yeah.
What we feel is missing.
Well, I feel like some of the aspects of Heather's personal life that we go through, like that bit where she flies back to her hometown.
Her father.
Because her dad had a stroke. Like,
yeah.
I feel like that
could have.
That if we could have traded that whole chapter for more information about the Doctor.
That whole arc, really, like
it didn't do anything for her.
No.
It didn't do anything for what's her kid's name, Zach.
Zach.
It didn't.
And the only thing that it did really was it just proved that Michael was more of an asshole than we already thought of him to be, kind of.
Yeah, because without the stroke, then he wouldn't have assumed that she had control of the bank account, and he would have said, "Could I have $10,000 from your dad's bank account?" Like,
other than that, we didn't really need it. Like,
no, but I also feel like we didn't really need that vision of like it kind of drove that nail home, but it wasn't necessary. Nobody liked Michael. We all kind of assumed he was a shitbag.
Yeah, we didn't need something to make us not like him more. Like, we already didn't like him. So I would have traded that whole area of the book for more of like the Doctor in the 12th century. I'd like to find out how he found out about the doorway, and all that. So
yeah, that would have been nice. Are we counting this toward the plot section?
I would say plot and maybe tad length, I guess. Or,
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of how I factored it in. I factored it under plot and length.
yeah. So, what did you give in terms of like what was your score for the plot?
What did I give it in terms of plot? 7.8.
Oh, I gave it a 10 actually.
I
originally had it at a 9.6, but I was like, like I'm grading while I read. It's like the score fluctuates throughout. The ending is what kind of like, okay, like the ending. I mean, I don't think it could have ended any other way, really.
I mean, it could have. He could have just died again. He could have chosen to stay and die again. But that's not. I don't think that was the point of what. I don't think that was what.
But thematically, this was the only ending that could have.
Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, like for what Craig was trying to do, I don't think that would have worked out at all. It would have been a weird decision, given everything else that's happened and the tone that he's been setting this entire time.
Yeah.
No, I scored it. It wasn't that Heather was unimportant. She was just kind of like, I was kind of sick of her a little bit. Miss Ma'am, I am having a conversation. Say hello to the cat, everybody. I'm a little busy, ma'am. Can you drink out of the water bowl? Do I have to turn on the sink? Heather and Josh kind of weighed down the plot for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't like Joshua would have been fine if he had just kind of stayed in the first half or first third, I guess.
Well, I
just kept.
Yeah,
like just to get the point across that like, okay, Gordo has made friends.
I think he was supposed to be. They were supposed to be the mirror of the life he left behind. So he had the two people who had the biggest impact on him, or well, the three people who had the biggest impact were his father, his trainer, and his lover. And in this other section, Harry became that father figure, Josh became the trainer, and Heather became the lover figure.
I would say that even Josh was maybe even more of a composite of the trainer / maybe brother.
Yes.
And then Heather's the one he longed for.
And because I mean, you can see that it's kind of obvious, like because he has a son, and then when he looks back, his
lover was pregnant with child.
Well, she was with child, but then like at the very end when he's
and you see the boy, yeah.
So like that's the mirror. So I get why she was important. I just feel like she took up a lot of time. That it wasn't wasted. It was just not like I enjoyed it. It just didn't really. There were a lot of parts of it that could have been cut out, and we wouldn't have lost any impact in the story, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
But you gave him a 10.
I gave him a 10, only because as a whole, like even with the stuff that I didn't care for, like if I just focused primarily on Gordo, like because he's the main focus, his whole arc was pretty much perfect. Like there's the side plots that but like they weren't so damning that, and they didn't really, like Heather didn't really last too long. Like you didn't stay too long in her shoes.
No, we just kept going back to her.
You just kept going back to her, which
like it was nice to get that glimpse into 80s Toronto art world.
Mm-hmm.
Illustrator life. That was interesting. It would have been more interesting in a different context. Within the context of what this story was, it was kind of like,
Yeah.
And
I think when it comes to like the whole Heather story arc thing, I think I kind of put that into the characters reading aspect. So like that's where it kind of dipped a bit for me.
No, I mean, I ranked characters pretty high, actually.
Really? What'd you rate it?
8.
That's the next one. 8? I did 7.5.
You did 7.5. I mean, I did 8 because I didn't really see the point of Vera.
The only thing I can do to justify Vera was she was someone who also longed for a place where she no longer lived. That's the only thing. But you already had that with like Riku and his own antagonistic sense, the Doctor. Like they're all he wasn't the only one out of time.
Yeah.
So like, but I don't know. And I feel like Vera was also kind of like the sacrificial lamb, where it's like, okay, you know that the Doctor will kill anyone, but it's not any of the main players.
Well, why did we need Vera? Why couldn't all of that interaction have just been Riku?
Yeah. Or like Riku's wife in some way.
Like that would have
like secondhand account from the wife that Riku also felt.
It would have brought this. It would have made his reaction to Riku a little less like not forced, but like it would have been more emotionally pulling because like they're on the same parallel. Here's somebody who's been trying to make his life work. I don't know. I feel like I dropped a point for Vera just because it was like she just felt so unnecessary.
Like a plot device.
Yeah, like a plot device
than an actual character.
Yeah, like it was. Because all of that entire conversation, especially like even the part where what was your real name at home, like he could have had that conversation with Riku.
Yeah, and like
he had an eating establishment. Why couldn't the Doctor have left his piece of paper in that eating establishment by accident? Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, Vera's the one character where it's like not needed, except for like the fact that like, okay, the Doctor killed someone, but it's not. I mean, he kills Riku, so like that would have been, but like I think it had to be someone. No, Vera could have been written out completely. There was no need for
Yui.
Yui, yeah.
Like he didn't kill Yui. He killed Riku, but not Yui. Why would if we need a feminine death to really drive home the barbarity, the barbarism of the Doctor, kill the husband and the wife. He still gets the sword.
Yeah.
That was my really only major gripe. That and what I said before.
Or maybe it was just like he's willing to kill someone who has no stake in it. Because Vera didn't have any stake in like the past or where they were. Like she wasn't. Maybe that was it. Like she was such a detached character and a one-off that it's like, oh, he's willing to kill someone who, I mean, means something to Gordo, but like she to the reader is so far removed from it all.
If we'd seen her more than just like 3 times.
3 times?
3 times we saw her. And only one of those instances was anything that had any kind of emotional depth.
That bordered on some kind of like emotional intimacy, but without sex.
Yeah. Then it would have made more sense, but she was just so far in the background that it was like I don't care that she died. I cared more about what happened to Yui than I cared about what happened to Vera. So yeah, for me that was, I gave it an 8. I was still happy with the only gripe I had about, as far as characters and fleshing them out, the only real gripe there was besides the other two was Shauna and Heather, because sometimes when they were talking, it was like they blended into the same person.
Yeah.
And if you gave it enough time, they would diverge, because Shauna has, I mean, very clearly she has a different social life, different social value than single mom. So they're going to be operating on 2 different wavelengths. But if they're not making plans for what they're going to do that weekend, if they're just talking about like a thing, you can't really tell them apart.
Yeah. Completely forgot about Shauna, actually. Like, she was so, like...
Did you forget Alice, too?
Yeah.
Alice was the babysitter.
Yeah. I knew someone watched the kid, I just didn't care to remember. Like, yeah.
Well, you don't really see Alice. It's not that she doesn't matter, you're just like, it's...
She's just mentioned.
She's not really there. I wouldn't have cared about Alice. That's... Anyway. Style.
I gave it a 10.
I gave him a 10.
I thought this was, especially with the sort of out of time, and this kind of goes into, actually no, like the style, like just like the way Gordo narrates, like the style of like, it just feels, it even feels almost like archaic to a degree.
Yes. Yes, I would concur. That was,
and not even when he's talking. Like, obviously when he's talking, it sounds unlike the others, but even just the way he is describing things, just it's very not of this time, which in that regards, Craig knocked it out of the park for me.
Well, and I think I mentioned this in my notes, but one of the traps that you can fall into, especially if you're doing like the time travel thing, is it'd be really easy to fall into the unfrozen caveman trap, where he doesn't. He really does feel like it.
Like, it feels like he's trying to actually understand, and he's kind of got a bit of a grasp, but then he'll like say like, I don't understand why. Like, certain gestures or certain phrases, it's like, and even the doctor brings it up. He's like, oh, they're so informal. You're like, buddy.
Not your buddy.
Not your buddy.
Fuck off. I do like the way they swear, though. Fuck off. That's great.
How saying fuck off can have as much, like, it can do as much damage as like a cut of a blade or something like that.
The thing that I noticed that he did, I mean, besides making Gordo feel like he really was just on an adventure. He's not just some unfrozen caveman. Like, he comes from a higher-minded society.
Yeah. And
he's just stuck somewhere and he's trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
But I think one of the, are you getting down? Okay, go. One of the things that he does is that, like, the guy makes 80s Toronto feel like an actual adventure. Like an actual adventure. And 80s Toronto. Some offense. It's 1980s Toronto.
Yeah.
He's like, ooh, it actually sounds like an adventure.
Yeah. But like, he also, like, even though it's 1980s Toronto, it doesn't feel like you're reading a period piece. Like, yeah, it's 1984, but you don't. No. It's not chock full of all this unnecessary, like, look at this pop culture reference. You know, I mean, like, there's the music, But that's about it. It's not like, oh, the big hair, the whatever. And, like, he doesn't nostalgia porn the fuck out of the book.
No. No, it did not feel like an anachronistic nostalgia jerk. It felt...
No. It felt like you were very much like this was the modern day, like, even though, because, like, and he's done it with the Luke Fisher novels as well, where, like, obviously these take place, like, before 9/11, because, like, airport security was very lax in the books.
Mm-hmm.
But then you start to notice that there's no use of cell phones, it's all payphone.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, while you're reading it, you don't feel like you're reading something that took place, because I think the vehicle he's driving, like, it was like 87, so it's between 87 and 2000.
Yes.
Like, that's so but it doesn't feel like you're reading something from another time. It feels like you're reading a modern piece. It's only a once upon reflection after reading it that you're like, oh. And if this hadn't told you this is 1984 Toronto, you would probably just think this is modern day. And it's like, oh, well, except for the fact that, like, everyone's using landlines. Other than that, it doesn't feel like you yourself are out of time.
No, it doesn't. But actually, one of the things that struck me the most, and I don't know if I put it under diction or if I think I might have put it under diction. But, like, did you feel, it felt to me like, when he was going back through feudal Japan,
mm-hmm.
like, it felt more familiar.
With, like, when he was doing the show-in?
Well, yeah, when he was talking about, yeah, Gordo's youth, like, when he was a boy, he's going through his eyes. Like, it felt, he made East Toronto feel
he made Toronto feel kind of futuristic, even though for us it's very
just alien,
yeah.
And then to where Sean, you feel like you actually feel a little more at home.
Like, yeah, you feel more at home when he's talking about it.
Which,
so, like,
that's pretty.
That's hard to do.
Good. Yeah, that was pretty goddamn good. Especially, like, I hope he's never been to 12th century Japan.
Craig, what are you not telling us?
Craig, where are you from?
I'm not from here.
I'm from overseas.
I'm from overseas.
That's a great cop out. I'm from overseas. Where overseas? Somewhere else.
Somewhere else.
I don't know.
I don't know.
But no, it's the fact that you could feel more at home in feudal Japan in 80s Toronto, which is, I mean, 40 years ago.
39 going on 40 years, yeah.
Like, that felt alien. Like, actually alien. And then you get to Heather's viewpoint and it just feels like
it feels like this is where we're this is present day. Like, this is what I grew up in, kind of thing.
Yeah. No, that was, yeah, style and diction. I mean, you have to give him a really high score for that, and just because he did so well. I feel like that actually his style sold this as a concept better than some other, as you call it, slipstream
fiction. Yeah.
Fiction. More believably better. Like, what's that one with the lady who goes back in time to Scotland? What is it, Outlander or some?
Outlander, yeah.
Is it? I feel like that was a self-insert. Like, that lady just wanted to get frisky with some younger Scotsman from a different time, and so she self-insert.
Now, while I wouldn't necessarily call Gordo or even the aspects of Heather, like self-inserts for Craig, but you can tell there's a lot of him in both characters.
Yes.
It's not so much a self-insert. I would say that more with the Luke Fisher novels, that's him kind of like daydreaming. Like it's like, oh, if I were, a private eye or whatever, like what would I do? Like I feel like that's his playground. I feel like this felt more of like an intimate like story for him.
Well, yeah, it would. I mean, because the nature of it would have to be, because he's not like, it isn't just, oh, we're going forward in time and we're going to explore this area and da 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 da. Like so many of these things are, this was this historical event that happened around this time. Like he's exploring the mindset of a person who is stuck in that. It's not about the events. It's about what's going on in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Because you would have to adapt to that new kind of way of life. And how do you adapt to that? And how did you even get there? Like in a lot of cases, nobody dies to travel back or forward in time. They just do. Yeah. Whereas this one, it was definitely a different kind of take. And I really liked that. I went on for a while about it in my notes.
With the terms of his style?
Concept and execution.
Oh, concept and execution. Okay. What did you? I gave concept a 5 and execution a 4.6.
I gave concept a 4.3 and execution a 5.
Okay.
It's still really high.
It's still really high, and I mean, basically almost the same score, just flipped in terms of where you put the 4 point whatever. For me, concept was a 5 because, I mean, there have been time travel movies, there have been time travel novels, obviously, but it's always been more about someone going back and never really forward. Yeah. I mean, there's the Time Machine by H.G. Wells?
Yes.
Yeah. Where he obviously he starts off going back, trying to prevent the death of his lover, then he moves forward. So, like, other than that, I think it's always going back, because it's easier to write and depict a past event, because you can look that up. You can look up all of the facts, as to where in the future it can kind of get a little iffy, I guess.
Well, see,
and also there's no stakes in the future, because like maybe you going in ahead of time is what causes these things to happen, as to where going back, like, you risk changing things, or maybe you find out that you are the cause for the past events, but there's also the risk of you changing, like let's just say preventing JFK from being assassinated, like so going back in the past holds more stake, as to where this, he has, he didn't travel by his own volition. He died and found himself in what he thought at first was the afterlife.
Yeah. No.
So to me, like, this was like a completely like, it takes the concept of time travel, but takes it in a less scientific route. It's more fantastical, because usually time travel is
definitely more
science
mystical.
Fiction.
Yeah,
this is way more mystical. This and almost, if you kind of think about it if you think of samurai as like a spiritual practice, this is more of a spiritual time travel novel, as opposed to like, oh, I found out through quantum physics that I whatever. Like, this is very much.
Well, isn't that the nature of, like, the Bushido that's like the warrior's way, and that's a philosophy, and that's a mindset. So in a way, yeah, it is. In that's basically entirely what he's dealing with, is facing the fact that he died, but also he's still alive. And how do you live with the fact that you died when you're living?
Yeah.
And what does that even mean?
Yeah. So that's why I gave Concept a 5, because it was like, this felt very original on
Well, I
on
think
a concept.
I put all
But
of that under execution. Like the concept as far as I put it, to me it wasn't all that, like, it's been done, but the way he inverted some of the tropes of the time travel kind of thing, that actually made it more worthwhile.
actually, no, flip them. I mean, it's the same score, but now that I'm thinking about it, Concept, yeah, 4.6, execution, but let's just flip my score around. It's the same score, but
it's the same score. Because what he did, that was so, like, he inverted so much of it. Like, instead of going backwards, somebody came forward. Instead of it being scientific, it was very spiritual and philosophical.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just going on an adventure, the adventure is forced upon you because you had died.
And instead of taking advantage of being in the future, he's longing to go back. Like, it's not like, oh, I'm gonna take advantage of, the fact that, I mean, it's not quite the same, because, I mean, since he's a man out of time, like, but he's in a body of that time. That's another thing, is his body didn't go into the future. His consciousness occupied, I guess, a vessel, which makes me wonder what happened to the soul of the original Gordon Clemens.
Well, I put that under quotability because that was actually something that he would, page 49. He thinks about, what's Gordon Clement doing? Did we just switch bodies? Did we just switch consciousness? Is he in the Shoen?
Is he in the Shoen?
Like,
or
losing his shit. Because he doesn't know where anything is. He doesn't know what anything is. He doesn't, like, you take a man from feudal Japan and a man from 1980s Toronto, and you have them swap places. How you doing, buddy?
I think Gordo's dead.
Well, I wonder, that was the other thing, is like, did Gordo OD? Or did the musicians create the body and the identity? Like, is it a body that's made for? Because the Doctor, remember, made up all of the stuff about Gordon Clement.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, did the musicians forge the body for him? Because, like, it's also it's not just like a spiritual, it's not just the spirit crossing over. Like, there is a body that enters through the ravine, just gets kind of plopped.
Mm-hmm.
So
it
leaves it is an aspect that is almost unanswered.
If Gordon Clement were an identity, were a persona before Gordo came along, at that age, going around to all of the places that he went around, somebody would have known him. And nobody. Yeah. I also like that he didn't bother trying to explain the doorway.
No.
It was just a thing.
It was just a thing.
And that's a trap that a lot of other time travel pieces fall into as well.
They want to explain everything.
Yeah, I'm really clever. Look what I did. Like, no. This is beyond your ken. It's just there. It's just a door. It accept it or don't.
Not everything has an explanation when it comes to the fantastical. Like, and it's almost kind of like the whole, like, the magician's trick. Like, it's best if you don't know how the trick works. If we knew how the doorway worked, I don't think we would have.
Well, I mean, we didn't learn all that much about how the doorway worked. We only learned that there have to be 3 on either side.
Mm-hmm.
Or there have to be 3 on the other side, and the musicians decide who gets to go and who doesn't.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all we know. But they would have had to craft, I think they would have had to craft the body, because otherwise, why did the Doctor have the same one?
Yeah. And why did Gordo go back to Gordo once he was tossed back?
Mm-hmm.
But when they do go back and they say that, that their skin is now no longer, white, it's back to what they originally were. Are they in their old body again, or like did they craft a body, or is it just like a different, or are they a different person altogether? Because if that's the case, if he did go back, how would he explain himself to his lover and child? Like I
think it was their original body, because he was able to identify, if I remember right, he was able to identify the Doctor when the Doctor died again.
Yeah.
He was able to identify him because that was the man he remembered killing his brother in the marketplace.
Yeah.
I think.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he was able to identify him. But anyway.
Yeah.
To the novel's structure. How did you feel about the novel's structure overall?
I gave structure a 10.
So did I.
Because this is a bluegrass song.
Yeah. It is.
It's great.
Yeah.
It is. It's a bluegrass song. Yes. 10. 10 out of 10. I have been trying to get people for a while now to start, like, you don't have to structure your book, your stories, you don't have to structure your narrative as music, but like, think about it in those terms, because you are manufacturing inaudible sound, and there is a wavelength, and there is like a good way to do it. It wasn't country, it was bluegrass. Like, definitively.
I feel like I don't feel like there's a lot of crossover when it comes to musicianship and literature. So like I feel like the only best way to explain this is to listen to Bluegrass yourself, and then if you have read this book, give Bluegrass a listen and kind of think of it in terms of the structure of the book. Like, this is Bluegrass.
Yes.
Because I mean, I'm not even the most versed in terms of musical theory and but like when it comes to the construction of songs, like there is kind of like the ebb and flow of certain genres that have a distinct voice, and this very much has that. I feel like when it comes to writing a book, like even if you're not consciously doing it, there is a musicality to writing a novel almost. Like, because even with songs, you have the introduction, you have the verse, you have the chorus. And the chorus would be like your motifs, your overarching themes that you go back to. Maybe not quite as repetitive that a chorus does, but there are elements that you bring back every now and then for the reader or the listener to enjoy again. And with Samurai Bluegrass, the one of the recurring things is, and it changes right at the very end. So like it's almost like it finally resolves itself, is because he always says, I am samurai, but at the very end it's, I am Gorgo. So like you finally get that chordal shift, that where it's either landing on the tonic or the fifth instead of being suspended or on like a more unstable chord. There's not an instability anymore.
Yes. Very well put.
But I feel, for the most part, kind of going into music terms, but I feel for the most part, Gordo lives within, like on the 7th So like there's 1 through 7, and then like the 8th would be back to the tonic. It's just an octave higher. So like I don't have a guitar on me, but I would kind of show you. But I feel like that would just take time explaining it. But I feel like he for the most part, Gordo exists on the 7th. He's not quite the tonic, but he's just like a half step off. It's a little discordant, but then he finally resolves, either going up to either up or down to the 1st, or he lands back on the 5th. So there's a bit of like security around. I would say probably the 5th, because he's not quite home. The 1st is home. He's on the 5th, so he's stable.
I think a visual demonstration would probably benefit some people.
A to G, from A to G and all the flats or sharps in between, give me a key.
From A to G and all the flats and sharps in between, give you a key.
Give me, so like if it could be A sharp.
I was going to say bronze
C,
or gold.
C sharp.
Oh, sorry. F sharp. To be tedious.
Sharp, so there's your tonic. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back home, but it's an octave higher, so 8. So here's home. This is what home feels like. This is the showing for him. He exists kind of out. Or if you want to do it, if you want to go to the flats 7, kind of make it a little, it's out of key for a major, but it's in the key of minor, which makes sense because he's longing. So when you're longing, there's a melancholy, so sadness. So instead of doing, so either goes here to either the 1 to where it's home, which that'd be the shown, but 5. Not quite home, but it feels right, because when you play it together, when you play 1 and 5 together, it's as opposed to like say 1 and the 3. Like anyway, so most of the time he's spending either on the 7 or the flat 6. I would say the flat 6 is probably the doctor. That's just because it sounds a little almost. But he's here, so so at the end of the book, he finally slides. He slides back to feeling at almost at peace. He's accepted it. So
that's a good demonstration.
That's kind of how it feels with Gordo, that he's not quite at peace in terms of a resolution, because like the 7th doesn't, it's not unpleasant, but it's not quite home.
Right. No, that's a very good illustration of what we're talking about. Thank you, Professor Clark.
You're welcome. But yeah, no, structure I gave it 10, because it, even like when you go back, again, the only thing I would say is like I wish I would have stayed there a little longer. It's not jarring, like nothing about, or even like switching from character to character, even though Gordo's in 1st and everyone else is in 3rd, it's not jarring. If it had been everyone was in 1st person, I feel like you would have to kind of read a bit to kind of go like, well, hold on, whose head am I in?
Well, I think Gordo was relaying the whole story.
Yeah.
Like the entire story.
So he's telling us, it's him narrating to us, like, I did this, Heather did that. The
and
doctor.
I think that might be how Craig kind of justified having all of that stuff about Heather. Heather and her father, Heather and her trouble with Michael, Heather and her life, because that's that to Gordo.
That kind of stuff would be important to him. He would find that because he values family. He values.
This is her success. This is what she was doing. This is her struggle. This is because he talks about it's important to him because he is her, like, he's there to protect her. He is her protector.
Mm-hmm.
That's how, like, that's at the end, that's the role that he takes on. So him recounting that story, or those parts of the stories, her in particular, that to him it would be important. Mm-hmm. As an overall objective narrative, some of that stuff can be left out, but it makes sense if he's the one relaying the entire story. Then it makes sense why it would be included.
Yeah,
I'm suspecting. I have not finished 3 Minute Hero.
Mm-hmm.
But I suspect that's the same kind of thing that that Craig is doing in 3 Minute Hero. Okay. Because you're getting a similar setup where Luke is in first person, but then you get Harold in the third person.
Okay.
I think he's doing the same thing where Luke is relaying what happened to Harold. I think Harold is going to be dead at the end of 3 Minute Hero.
He better not.
I don't know. I just have a suspicion.
Okay.
Because technically, that's just my suspicion. Because he very clear, like, he's got stomach cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm guessing that's what Harold's problem is. But anyway. That'll be for. I'll talk about that when I talk about 3 Minute Hero at a later time.
Later time.
That's my theory about how he's structured, how Samurai Bluegrass was structured, or why you're getting these different points of view as like the narrative. Why we go from first and third and first and third. And back and forth because, and I think he gets to see those things as a dead man or as a dead soul. Like, I think in one respect or another, he sees that because he's passed through this doorway. Because, I mean, when he's in meditation, how he can see, shut up, Copper Man. You could see, like, he gets that glimpse of the doctor dying a second time. What?
Yeah.
Okay, what?
Shut up. Just a quick sudden break. I didn't hear anything. It doesn't pick up on the microphone at all or anything, so it's just the fact that you just stopped randomly to scream that. Anyway. Although now, since you're saying, like, okay, Gordo's the one telling the story of, like, Heather's, like, this is him relaying it to us. If we take that just a step further, instead of us reading a book and it's as if he's telling us the story, are we someone at the Pearl? Are we someone, or has he died again and he's relaying this past life to us in some fashion?
I don't think I think the first one. I think we're someone at the Pearl, or maybe you're occupying, like, as the reader, you're occupying the position of Zach.
Oh, either Zach or maybe even another samurai who's crossed over since
the samurai that he meets right at the end.
At the end, yeah.
The new samurai, the new one who comes through.
Yeah.
That might be more likely. You're occupying as the reader, he's telling the entire story.
And this is obviously someone he feels comfortable with without being put into, the madhouse. So obviously, it's
Probably
either got to be Zach,
samurai.
who might just believe that it's a fantastical story, or it's another samurai that's crossed over that he's filling him in, like, you're not alone, this is my story, this is what happened, kind of thing.
I feel like it's probably the samurai. It's probably the second samurai.
Diction.
Diction, 9.2.
I gave him a 9.
I gave him a 9.2 because there were
a few words that, in Gordo's perspective, that he used that I just feel like he wouldn't know. I can't remember what they are offhand, and I didn't underline them or write them down. But I remember reading. I'm just like, yeah, calling it a pie. Like, unless, and like, this is Toronto. I don't know Canada that well, but I don't think, like, I feel like pie is very much a regional thing, and that's like the Northeast, like specifically like New York, New Jersey. Like, I feel like that's where it's, or even Chicago, maybe, like, where they're considered pies. California and like the West Coast, it's pizza. Like, you don't say like, oh, I'm gonna get myself a pie. Do you want one? Like, it's, oh, I'm craving pizza. Want me to stop by one of the chains and get one? You don't say pie.
I think Toronto is supposed to be around Michigan.
Michigan.
Like, not, I don't know if it's across the lake or the bay or wherever, but I think it's like, because Craig typically, from what I've suspected, from what I've sussed about Craig, he seems to write about places he's been, places he knows. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those places are in the Midwest or in Mexico.
I can't imagine Canadians being like, oh, you want a pie? Like, I just can't see it.
It is 80s Toronto.
True.
More specifically, it is the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing I could think. But yeah, there words that he used that I don't think Gordo would use, or moments where I would have as just me personally making a decision, I would have used a different word.
Like, oh, okay, I remember one of the words. I don't think Gordo would have used the word denizen. No. I don't think that was a denizen. I feel like that's more of a modern word in the lexicon of, the English, but
it's more esoteric in the lexicon of English. I don't think he would use that word.
I don't think he would have known that word. So, and it was just like, I would have used citizen or, resident, not denizen.
But yeah, that would, yeah. That one felt a little. So, I mean, it wasn't like we've said before. The man knows how to use his words, and he knows how to use them well. But it wasn't. This was not going to be a walk in the park. As far as he did pretty well. There were a couple of slip ups, but it was still good. I mean, you try writing about an experience in your city from the mind of a foreigner.
Yeah, but denizen, that just it didn't seem like a word that a 12th century samurai would use. Denizen.
No.
I won't say it took me out of it, but I paused a bit. I'm like,
he definitely didn't learn that word from Josh.
No. Or Stan.
No.
So, or Harry. Doubt Harry taught him denizen. I mean, in terms of knowing, in terms of Craig's vocabulary, it's it's fine. But in terms of Gordo's vocabulary, it just felt out of place in a few areas.
If Heather had used it instead of Gordo, I wouldn't have questioned it.
Yeah, but it was Gordo.
Um, diction, I gave him a 9.2. Formatting. Craig, fire your formatter.
Yeah. I mean, I gave it an 8.5.
Oh, I didn't.
Because it's not, for the most part, the text is not damnable.
Visually, this book was a dumpster fire.
Like, I have my notes. The font, don't care for it. The J's look childish. I know that most people don't care about this. Most people probably don't care about this aspect of our review, but as indie writers who also work in the formatting field, it comes to at least my attention, and to a degree, because I think you've kind of picked up some like what to look for. Because before, like, you didn't really care that much for font. Like, you were just like, that's just, whatever. But like, I feel like you're starting to pick up on that. The font, didn't care for the font. Also didn't care for the font size.
No.
The dimensions of the book aren't as damning because it's 5.5 by 8.5. It's not a 6 by 9, which would have been atrocious. It felt slightly a little too big for a book. Like, it's not so like damnable that it's like, oh, this is way too big, but like it's not like.
This was the thing that kept irritating me.
At the top?
No, the chapters starting on a left-hand page.
Oh yeah, that too.
The thing that I don't want to say it pissed me off, but it did. I can find it. Give me a second.
The part divisions.
Yeah.
Those have always landed on the right. They usually landed on left, and they also had the page number and his name or the book title on it. Yeah, that should have had its own page.
It should have been like this.
It should have been like the first one. The first one's the only good one.
Yeah.
Because there's no header, and it's on the right. After that,
the chapter starts on the right-hand page.
Yeah. After that, it was just a.
This was like, yes, on this page. Do not, but this.
Yeah, there has to be a blank page, and also get rid of the header.
Yeah.
Also, widowed/orphaned lines.
You have to explain what that is to people, because I doubt everyone's gonna know.
Okay, so let me find one real quick. Okay, so we go to 178. Like, it goes to the bottom, but then you have this singular line that ends the paragraph before you go to the next. Like I was saying with like the widowed and orphaned lines, how like you'd have like a paragraph that starts here but it doesn't end until the singular line at the top and then it drops. It's very amateurish to do that. You at least want to have at least two lines. You don't want to have just one. So that's those singular lines, and it's the same with if there was only one line at the start of the paragraph. I mean, that's a little more forgiving because then you have like this body of text on the next one. But to end it, the singular line on the next page is just so especially if it's just a singular word. Like, I feel like there were a few pages where it was just one word. Or I just found another one. Yeah, where it's Riku called over without looking up or stopping his writing, and then says she is not a concern in this. That's still part of the same paragraph, but all you have is the dialogue, and it's not indented like the rest, and it just It doesn't look pretty to me.
What fonts would you have used and why?
Well, first off, I would have done the 5.25 by 8 dimension for a book. With this book, I would have probably gone something with something something a little more classic, like Jansen or like Caledonia. I would have gone with that. But this, it just feels very out of place as I'm reading it. Now, granted, I got used to it over time, so it was not as offensive once I got to the end. But upon first glance of the book, it just didn't look right to me. I would like the font for False Cathedrals. That's Jansen. Like, I feel like that would have suited this better. But,
all that notwithstanding, I still think you gave him a higher score than I did.
I gave him an 8.5 because, like, it wasn't like because there have been books, one of which I actually reformatted in a better font and even better like seam dividers, because the original formatting I said, like, I cannot read this book. The font, it's Book Antiqua. It's awful. Book Antiqua should not even exist as a font, except for maybe as an example of a font to never use. But yeah, there or even the font for fucking Calibration 74 didn't care for that font. Did not care for any of the fonts in Garden of the Golden Children. Those fonts are also examples of fonts that should never be used. But this, I mean, it wasn't an offensive font. It didn't feel right.
I mean,
especially when we get to the italics, the italics is where it starts to feel childish to me.
I did not like the italics of this font. Like you said, I kind of got used to it as we went along. But occasionally, like when you get to the italics, you're like, oh, that does not look pleasant. That's kind of
so.
Yeah, I did not like. My big complaint with the formatting was that only his story was ever italicized. Like there was no difference in the font, either in size or type or design, whenever he was exploring one of his memories, like the ones and
like he gets like a letter, and I feel like the letters and like formatted in a bit to to at least give the idea that you're reading a letter. It's not just part of the text.
Yeah, no, I didn't like that was a thing. Like where you have your memories in the same font as your present day self, particularly if you're going from one page to the next of each one.
Mm-hmm.
This fucking fly.
And I feel, and also going with font, the chapter numbers, chapter 27, chapter whatever, or even like escape, and the sections like now, then, escape, return. Those should have been in a font that suited the book. I feel like it shouldn't have been the same font as the text.
No, I did not.
Like some books you can get away with having it be the same text because I feel like this, especially with it being, the story of a samurai out of time. I feel like you could have gone the route of it making almost look like handwritten, script from a Japanese person, almost as if it's him still connecting with his past, like the past with the present, almost.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like you could have gotten away with that, and it would have made sense in the context of this book. In the other book, I've been like, you shouldn't have done that font. In the context of this book, I feel like you could have gotten away with using some kind of handwritten script-looking font that looked like it was painted with a brush, as if you were, the samurai.
Yes. Yes, I would agree with all of that.
So.
No, formatting, I did not like any aspect of the formatting. I gave it a 3.
Ooh.
Because it wasn't just...
I would say that's harsh. I would say like...
I don't feel like that was harsh.
I would say the lowest. I would say the lowest I would go. The lowest I would go on this if I didn't get used to the font near the end. The lowest I would have gone on formatting would probably have been a 6. Like it's not.
No. It was too consistently off, like all throughout. Like there was no, very little or no effort made to fix all of those things.
So, yeah, Craig, I'm with EK. You should fire your formatter, and if you're looking for someone, hi, how's it going?
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about that. Next time, just call JD.
And I actually did a tweet about this because as I was reading the book, where it was like, I feel like a lot of indie writers, when it comes to formatting, they don't really have a say in how their final product looks, and they should. In fact, the formatter should be kind of almost on a constant contact, in constant contact with the writer, be like, hey, so I've got your manuscript. We discussed dimensions, obviously, you 5x8, or in this case, 5.5 by 8.5, whatever. Here are some fonts that I think work for the voice of your novel. I will send you some screenshots. You let me know which one you think works best, and we'll go from there. And then be like, okay, what do you want me to do for the part dividers, like the dividing pages for the parts? Do you want me to keep it this? Do you want me to do that? Do you want me to have the now? So like now, and then maybe even have it to where you use a font where, when you type it in, or not even a font, like type in the word now into like Google Translate or whatever, and then like have it translate to like Chinese, and then have that underneath now. So like there's at least an element of the old with the new. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So, but what I was getting at was that indie authors, I feel like, are so, especially, first time, that's their first time publishing, they have no idea what they're doing. And they just kind of either try to do it themselves, or they get someone on Twitter or whatever says that they'll do it. And it's someone who doesn't know what they're doing, but they think they do. I feel like when going about that, be like, oh hey, like I'm looking for someone to format, and someone says, oh I could do it. Don't just cool. Be like, can you give me some or other writers that you've done to show what the final product looks like? Like almost have a portfolio on hand. Like, and I did that with the tweet that I did. I did, because I also did covers. Like I did some of mine. I did one of yours. I think I did Laughing Man. I did a poetry collection that I did. But and then I did the inside of a few of the books that I'd done as well, to kind of show like this is what it would look like. I mean, not for your book, but this is some of the work I've done. And I feel like that's how it should be for indie authors, is like you shouldn't just blindly give your book to someone on good faith and then not have input. Like I feel like if Craig had, then again, I don't know if Craig did see this. I mean, obviously he did, because there was an arc and it was sent to people. Although those headers weren't there on the arc. The headers were not there. So who knows? But and he wouldn't have known that, like, oh, like between then and the next page, like, oh, there's not going to be a blank page. What page does that land on? Blah 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 blah. No, I feel like I feel like there needs to be something done. Especially there are other books that, like, I had to put down Ghost River because on the title page doesn't come after the first chapter. It comes first. It's the title page. Like your book, like even like, and I feel like this is part of why a lot of people say that, indie published or self-published books get a bad rep, is because they don't look as clean or as neat or as, I'll say, authentic looking as a traditionally published book. So
They don't.
They don't.
But
and as well written as this book is, the look of it on the inside, like, this is what some people will talk about. Like, they're like, oh, there's a header on, a dividing page, and it's not on the right, and there's not a blank that keeps it whatever. And there's some people don't mind the chapters being left and right, because there are books that do that. I don't care for it. That's why I try to keep it all on the right.
It's not. It's always bothered me seeing that, where the chapter begins on the left-hand page. Mm-hmm. It's not a clean break between chapters. And he doesn't necessarily have clean breaks. Like, there's a couple of instances where he finishes, like, Gordo finishes that conversation with the doctor in the pizzeria, and then the chapter ends and he immediately goes into a conversation with Heather at the same pizzeria, because she interrupted his lunch. Yeah. Like, that's fine. It makes sense. But that, if memory serves, that chapter with the doctor ends on the left-hand page, and that conversation with Heather starts on the right-hand page. So you can still see that connection, but it's still a neat kind of separation between this moment and this moment. And it to start on that left-hand page consistently, like that consistently, it looks cheap. Like, I didn't want to have to spend that much money, so we'll just, like, cram it all together, and good luck. Mm-hmm. but also your dividing pages, your like your parts, your you know,
Yeah.
now,
Those should
before,
always,
escape, return. Those should always start on the right-hand side. Because you're separating the portions of the book.
And then the chapter following that dividing page should still land on the right. So there should be a blank page.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that for sure bothered me. Like I said, like the lowest I would probably go is a 6. It's not necessarily a 3, because when you look past all of that, like, I don't know. Like I got to it. It wasn't so off-putting. Like the only reason I got through Golden Children was because it was short. Had that been a longer book, I would have DNF'd it and been like, no, I'm not dealing with that for 300 some odd pages. That barely broke 100. But yeah, this, I'm gonna presume.
The reason I'm gonna give it a 3, and I'm gonna stand by that score.
So like,
now, I think it was formatted for, because when I got that early PDF, it was like, formatted just like, I think it was formatted for ebook, and they never got that separate formatting for paperback.
So going with Surf City Acid Drop and Manastique, like he knows, he's had someone published where the person knows not to do the header on a new chapter. So like he's worked with someone who can do good work. I don't know if maybe he formatted them himself, these, because I think maybe Ethel Birdhouse is just him. I don't know. I don't know. I can't say for sure. But whoever did those, whoever published it, or whoever does the formatting for Ethel Birdhouse, they know what they're doing. Whoever does the formatting for Literary Wanderlust does not. And they should be fired. They should just be fired from Literary Wanderlust altogether. Not even Craig, you should fire your formatter. It's Literary Wanderlust, whoever formats.
Well, or just give the fucker some training, like shit.
People need to know that is an unacceptable formatting job. It's not the worst. I've seen worse. I've seen
no, it's not the worst. I'm pretty sure I gave Bill.
You got a 0. You got a 0. Actually, no, I think I gave him a 1 because words did get on the page. That was it. That was like he got a 1 because words got on the page. I think I gave. Let me flip through. I can just flip through and just find it.
Like I gave Bill a 0 because his was shittily formatted. Craig gets a 3 because he knows better. And I know he knows better.
Yeah, formatting got a 1 because words got on the page. That was my note. Words got on the page.
But this, like, Craig knows better.
Yeah.
That's why it's particularly egregious, because it's like, I know for a fact he knows better than to do some of those things. So, like, it's good. I'll read it again. I'm just looking at it. It's like, nope.
So, like, if there's at any point, Craig, where you get the rights back to the book and you want to do like a second edition, I'll format it that way it doesn't look like that. It's not gonna change your score in any way because this is as we read it now. But yeah, this could have been better. Way better. Length.
The only aspect that made this feel overlong was Heather's personal life, and I get that she was important, but I I would have liked to lose some of her story and get more of the backstory from the Doctor. That was the only real complaint I had about length on this.
Yeah. Same. Feel like we talked about earlier, like the sections with her father, we didn't really need that, and I felt like that was only to further solidify something we already knew, and that was that Michael was a dick, and that we shouldn't like him, because it came of it was that he asked for money and was like, oh, it's like you have control of his funds and whatnot. Why do I have a weak signal? There we go. Back. Anyway.
No,
yeah.
this was a good length.
I gave it a 9.6.
Or an 8.4.
Doesn't sound like you were that great about it, or that satisfied with its length.
I am very rarely satisfied by anybody's length.
Typical.
No, it's not typical.
You always want it bigger.
Bigger and quicker. That would solve a lot of problems.
It didn't feel too short. I would have just liked a little more with the Doctor and also a little more time in the showing. Like, actually interact with his lover.
I felt like
not just from a distance.
I felt like that. Okay, the time of the showing was too short. The time we spent following Heather's drama was too long. And those two things combined, kind of like, if we couldn't trade them out, then I'm going to need at least one of those. I'm going to need the one thing to compensate for the other.
Yeah. But yeah, like this didn't feel too long, and it didn't even feel too short. I just would have liked a little more time spent elsewhere. And while the final confrontation was quick, because I feel like in real life it would be that quick, I almost kind of wanted to spend a little more time there, just to kind of further push the two sides, like almost make it seem like a struggle instead of just like this sudden loss of footing, but then a quick regaining of it, and then doing the final cut. I would have liked that to have just lasted like maybe not even that much longer. I'm not saying like I want pages. Just three sentences at least.
I feel like part of chapter 36, which was that chapter that they were fighting each other after going back. I feel like that was kind of meant to make up for the brevity of the final fight. Or at least it did for me. It made up for me, that brevity, because it was quick. And you've spent all this time being antagonized by this guy. For him to just bleed out in an alley, poetic justice, sure. But I would have liked to see a little bit more.
Other than that brief criticism, this was like the perfect length for a book.
No, it's good. It wasn't overall. It's perfect. It just certain aspects of it made it feel like I was trying to barrel my way through something to get at the thing that actually mattered to me.
But,
yeah. Oh, you are drooling. She's waiting for me to drop a piece of my sandwich on the floor, and it's just drool. She's got a handful of drool.
Tell them to be quiet right now.
It's lovely. It's the wettest my hand's going to be for a while. Quotability.
I gave it an 8.
Oh, I gave it a 10.
It didn't quite get the 10 for me because I didn't quite get 5. I got 4.
I got 8.
I almost got a 10.
9. I got 9. I got 9.
You got 9? You got 9 quotes from this book.
I got 9 things that I
will be surprised to see what they are.
I mean, technically 8. I just really enjoyed reading chapter 36.
Is all of 36 your quotable
No.
moment?
No.
I think that doesn't count. Yeah, I got 4. So you want to bounce back and forth until we run out of mine and then just finish some of your, or you just want to pick your top 4?
We can bounce back and forth, and then when you run out, we'll just stop.
Okay. I'm gonna go with. I'll go with mine. My first one is the opening sentence.
Ha.
Every day I remain in the city, I thought of my death.
It feels like cheating, but I understand.
No, it's not cheating. If a opening line is that good, I think it's quotable. If you like that could be on a T-shirt and I'd wear it. Like it's almost so pessimistic if you just read that line. That's how good that opening line is to me. I don't think you can top that opening line. Think of a Dickens opening line that can top not paragraph, sentence, an opening sentence.
It was the best of times, it was the worst of times.
Doesn't top that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That sounds like a drunk person talking. Like, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Yeah.
No, because that's the echo of what we're living in now. It's the best of times. It's the worst of times. Like if you can comprehend that existential reality, that's I guess it's subjective. Okay.
Okay. I won't go as far as Dickens. I'll say in the modern novel, think of an opening line as good as that one. Like the last 30 years.
In the last 30 years, no.
Nothing in the modern canon can top every day I remain in the city, I thought of my death.
I feel like that you're driving this a little more home just so nobody tries to change your mind.
No. Here's the thing. So just go from the books that we've read of indie authors. I remember the first time I saw her. That's a good book, but not a great opening sentence.
Like I'm not saying he's not superior. I'm just saying I think you're giving a little more credit than that opening line deserves, just because you A, don't want me to try to change your mind, and B, you feel it a little existentially. That's all. That's all.
I'll even tear us apart if you want.
What?
I'll even tear us apart to prove a point if you want.
I'm not. I mean, I feel like you would do that just for kicks.
Let's tear you apart now. Opening line, that's my first quote.
Okay. God damn. Okay. The opening line is the best opening line that's ever been written in the history of literature.
No, not history of literature. 30 years.
Okay.
30 years.
I'm not gonna try to change your mind. Okay. I picked page 15.
15.
As Joshua weaved his way through the tables, I studied the angled papers, their color so stark against the black as if someone had sliced open the wall and let the entrails slide down.
How was that quotable? That's
What?
just an observation of good description. That's not quotable.
I like observations.
No, that's not observation. That's a description.
I like those.
That's not
To
quotable.
me, that's going to stick in my mind whenever I analyze anything.
I don't think you have a good grasp on what quotable is, considering also you didn't get a single quotable line from Ithaca either.
Nothing stuck.
A description is not a quotable
The things
line.
that you do that kind of stick are entire paragraphs.
That is not entirely true. Maybe an entire sentence, but it's not.
No, in an entire sentence that makes up a paragraph, you mean?
Yours is no.
The tail end of a sentence.
As Joshua would usually through the tables, I studied the angled paper, their color so stark against the black, as if someone had sliced. That's not quotable.
As if someone had sliced open the wall and let the entrails slide down. Would you like me to go by line then on the page? Because I can do that.
It's still not quotable.
Literally, like the last section of that sentence. That's what I was going for.
Time is strange. Events from my past now flowed together with ones in the present.
What page is that on?
Bottom of 201.
What, that's it? You're not gonna...
I don't have to defend myself. That's actually quotable.
No, I was expecting you to go on at length. I mean, you did for the first one.
No, that's quotable.
Okay. Bottom of page 200.
201. First off, just the first sentence alone, time is strange. And then I feel like everyone can relate to having that feeling of moments of your past flowing with ones in the present. Especially if there's like a synchronicity, like you experience, almost like a deja vu. It's not a description also.
Second one, page 17, line 5 and 6. Words were formed, but the meaning was unimportant, as this was sound.
This was about the sound.
Yes.
That's quotable.
That, to me, is a lot like what writing is.
That's quotable.
Yes, I know. That's why I picked it.
Yeah, but the first one wasn't.
Yes, it was. Words
No,
were
it wasn't.
formed, but the meaning was unimportant, as this was about the sound. That's what writing is. Like, you're not just putting words on the page. I feel like people don't really give a shit about what words they choose. Not enough, anyway. Because every word occupies a particular kind of frequency, and it makes a particular kind of sound, even if that sound is inaudible. So the way you use your words, the way you structure those words, the sounds that they're supposed to make, like, it's not necessarily about the word itself. It's about the sound that it makes that lends its existence to the creation of that image.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's the second one.
Here it is. Page 266. The ending of the 9th line and into the 10th and 11th. Was death ever fair? The belief that honor was present even in death was a facade.
Was death ever fair? Mine was page 49, the end of the paragraph about Gordon Clement. Perhaps he would go mad. In my first year in this city, I feared the same.
My last one is more about writing. I feel like you said, words were an important thing. This, I feel like, even though it's in the term, it's used for illustration, I feel like it very much fits within the realm of writing as well. She loved the feeling of a figure moving across the page, as if in battle, but at the same time a dance. She lost herself to it, becoming the observer to what formed in front of her. Lines on a page became figures, and those figures became humans with lives, struggles, expressions of passion and determination on their face. She knew it was only drawings for a business magazine, a very well-paying one, but she couldn't help thinking about these people she'd created.
It's just a good piece.
Those were my four.
My fourth one was on page 57. Did
you get any near the back?
Huh?
Did you get any quotes near the back, or were they all mostly in the front?
I stopped counting because I had too goddamn many.
Oh.
So yeah, there were some. I just didn't count them in because I was already going over. No, the one on page 57. Perhaps that is what happens when the line of life and death is straddled. Space itself grows smaller and everything comes within reach. I really liked that one.
Do a fifth, so that way it expresses the perfect score of 10, I guess, at least.
Page 107. Where did I say page 107?
Well, there's only like three paragraphs that aren't dialogue. I don't take you as someone to use dialogue as a quote. Only
if it's really good, but I wouldn't have qualified any of the dialogue on this page as being really good. That's how death is. Did you think it was only for the old?
So it was dialogue.
I didn't think I jogged it. It jogged once I saw it. Yeah, that's how death is. Did you think it was only for the old? Well done, Craig. I don't usually pick dialogue.
Yeah.
I completely forgot that I had picked dialogue. That's the perfect score.
Okay. I will alter my statement. I won't say that it's the best one I've written, but Craig does know how to write an opening line. Or even an opening paragraph.
Craig is excellent at opening lines. Craig is great for the hook.
I was looking at it. I was looking at my shelf and I saw SCAD. And I was like, that opening paragraph right there. And he even kind of does almost a meta nod to it near the end. I mean, I cracked the first of a pair of Pacificos and guzzled half the icy brew in one pull. The last edge of a red dime dipped into the horizon. I pressed the tea towel bag against the back of my head, trying to cool it down, ease the swelling, extinguish the pain like the sun sinking into the cold Pacific. Then, of course, the meta moment is, damn, I missed my calling as a poet or a beer salesman.
That was great. Yes, no, I will not argue that Craig is an excellent opener.
Yeah, I'll alter my statement. May not be the best ever written, but he does. The guy knows how to write one that sticks with you.
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. No, Craig knows how to drop a line.
Satisfaction.
Overall 9.5.
9.4.
9.4. Yeah, no, I did give him the extra credit for all the extra quotes that I found, I stopped at the point that I stopped because I had already given 8 points extra credit, and it seemed to be getting a little excessive.
How much extra credit did you give him?
8 points.
I gave him 5.
Yeah.
He did put a lot. I feel like, he did put like the aspect of illustration into the book because he's an illustrator. He put that with Heather.
Mm-hmm.
Now, while obviously not a samurai who died and whatnot, I feel like this is Craig wishing he could recapture his youth. And here's why I think that. Why 1984? Other than maybe like a subtle nod to Orwell. Why 1984? How old was Craig in 1984? He was 21. He's at the cusp of young adulthood. And maybe, he did turn 60 this year. And usually when you get up in years, you start to think about like, oh, I wish I could go back kind of thing. And maybe he really liked, because I feel like with how in detail he was with Toronto, I think he maybe really enjoyed it. And maybe wishes he could go back to that. So I feel like this was very much him wanting to recapture his lost youth. He himself, at the age he is, maybe feels out of time. But at the end of the novel, obviously, Gordo accepts that this is the life he has. So I feel like the end of the book was Craig kind of coming to terms with, like, where I am now, this is the life I have. I cannot go back. I feel like that's what this novel pretty much was for the author himself.
Maybe. I definitely saw a lot of Craig in Heather. Just because I know he was an illustrator. I know he worked. I don't know if he still works as an illustrator, but I know he did work as an illustrator at one time.
And he did the cover for this book. Like,
this is a great cover.
Yeah, it's a great cover. And that's where, like, it also adds a bit of maybe context in terms of Craig with that opening line. Considering, he's 60, and you're not getting any younger, he thinks of his death. Like, the idea of mortality kind of plays in his head a bit, maybe.
Possibly. I feel like he put himself in Heather, but I don't think he was doing it on purpose. I think where it started was that because Heather and Joshua are supposed to mirror those parts of Gordo's life that he left behind in the Shonen. Calligraphy was like one of the first forms of illustration. Like one of the earliest forms of illustration. And that's, I may be wrong, but from what I've learned, from what I've read and seen, that was, if you were educated, you were expected to know how to do it, but it was more of a feminine thing.
Mm-hmm.
And even now, it's still more of a feminine thing.
Kind of the same with being a typist back in the days of, like, typewriting. When there was a typewriter, like, if you were a typist, that was primarily a woman's job. So, like,
well, it's a secretarial job.
It's a secretary, yeah, but like
that's a woman's. You take dictation.
Yeah, but
and I feel like
but if you look at, because like that was writing. Like it was art. It was an art form, but it was writing. So like if you make, we became less artistic with the typewriter because that's mechanical, but it still was the transference of, like, that was a feminine job to.
Yes.
It kind of trails.
But I think, I think he picked an artist instead, or like an illustrator instead of just a calligrapher, because that's still, like, not that you can't have masculine illustrations. There's watercolor specifically has been described, and I've heard it be described as the most feminine of all the paints, of all the art forms, is watercolor.
Probably due to its delicate.
Because it's very delicate. It doesn't take a whole lot to fuck up a watercolor.
And
it's really hard to save.
And women were more known to be light with their hands, as to where a man was heavy-handed.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think that was where he found the correlation, and then just based on his own experience, because he needed that mirror, he needed that parallel. And then just based on his own experience, I don't think he went in planning to put that much of himself in. He just did because he already had the information. He definitely put himself in to this book. And definitely more than he's ever put himself into Luke.
Yeah, I feel like Luke is very much just a daydream for Craig. This felt more like almost like an exorcism of sorts for him.
It's definitely it's got that note. Yes, it's very introspective. It's very reflective. Like he's not. It's longer than 3-Minute Hero by about 15 pages. Most of them are existential in nature. There was a lot of him in this, yes.
Now, I'm not saying that Craig, like, obviously there's no way you can continue this story in my opinion, but like if Craig could, if Craig were to travel down this more literary route in terms of his writing, I would not object. I won't object to more Luke, but this is what pulls me, like makes me want to read him more.
Yeah, I wouldn't be upset about that either. What was your total score?
Total score, without extra credit, came to 91.6 cups of tea out of 100.
Total score without extra credit, 85.2 Dead Brothers out of 100.
Not Dead Veras?
Not Dead what?
Veras?
No.
With the extra credit, it's 96.6.
No, with extra credit, I gave him a 93.2. Well, I think that concludes
our review for this
Samurai Bluegrass.
book.
I will probably include a written one on my blog. I have 2 spots where I post written reviews.
I did a very brief review on Goodreads. Amazon wouldn't let me leave one. It said I don't meet the requirements. It's like I haven't said that enough reviews were helpful. Because apparently, if you say that a review is helpful, that helps you leave reviews. But.
Oh well, I've got my old blog on WordPress in the key of E, and then I've got the one on Substack, Drag the Writer. I'll probably post a written one there if nobody wants to watch a 45-minute to an hour video review. I'm not going to post the whole thing unedited. Jesus Christ. I don't think anybody wants that. I will I mean, I guess I can put a link to the blog in the description, but I might conveniently forget.
All right.
Definitely link to the other Craig reviews that we've done. Like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah. Leave a comment. Tell us you hate us.
I mean, you don't have to. I don't care.
But we don't know what we're going to review next, probably. It'll probably be 3 Minute Hero or Third Contact.
I mean, I would like to review Third Contact.
Okay.
But if you would rather do a different one for a video, then I will just do a written one for Third Contact.
Okay. I'll do that. I mean, we could probably eventually do a video one for it. For that way Pete can have something. Pete, if you're listening on this one, you go back a bit and you'll hear her in the key of E stuff, whatever. Read those. Read the Substack or read the blog.
Be like Craig or Pete. You know. Give a shit about what you do.
And, you know, to drive forward a point you made not a while back, but a little while back. Don't pad your word/page count with just mindless profanity. Like, this had profanity in it, but it fit within the context of when it was said.
But anyway, thanks for coming back to this video of Murder of Pros.
Yeah, we'll see you in like 7 months.
You know, I mean, it just depends on... Yeah, we'll see you in 7 months. Let's just call it that.
Yeah, if we're back earlier, hey, surprise.
Peace out, Cub Scouts. Don't get gout.